Mufasa was one of the breakout stars from Rise of the Floodborn. He's a resilient quester that's tough for opponents to challenge into, and just like in The Lion King, things really get going once he dies. Why? Well, the truth is, Mufasa isn't actually a lion at all. He's a giant Kinder Surprise. The 3-3 body that quests for 2? That's just the chocolate egg. What we really care about is the toy inside. We could get a terrifying dragon, some cool alien guy, or we could even get beloved comic actor Robin Williams. So why am I telling you all of this now? Well, as we look ahead to the Set 3 metagame, unlike in The Lion King, Mufasa is not going to fall off. My name's LD, and in this video I'm going to give you a detailed look at the deck I'll be playing for week 1 of Into the Inklands. So let's get into the deck list. If you're familiar with the Green Mufasa lists from Set 2, this won't look too strange to you. It's probably going to look pretty familiar. There's not too many huge changes, to be honest, and that's kind of always where I land when a new set comes out. I want to stick with something familiar to start with that I can see has clear improvements. The biggest and most obvious of those improvements is Pluto. Pluto is a 1-cost 0-2 character that gives us the ability to reduce the cost of the next character we play by 1. He fills a similar role to Lantern, but crucially comes down on turn 1 rather than turn 2, which is a real game changer for these Mufasa decks. For the first time, these decks now have access to lines that skip straight from 1 to 3 on the ink curve, so on turn 2 we can play a character like Doc, for example. Then Doc lets us do the same again, questing to reduce the cost of the next character by another 1, so we can jump straight from 3 to 5, and play something like, well, Mufasa. Because we're playing the 1-cost Pluto, it's also very easy for us to include the 7-cost Pluto in this list. He's a great Mufasa target, and is just the kind of huge bodyguard this deck wants in some situations, so for me, I just want to try it out. Moving back to the deck list, the other huge new additions to this deck are Ursula Deceiver and the Bare Necessities. Both of these cards let us look at our opponent's hand and take away relevant songs, and in the Bare Necessities case, other actions or items too. For the first time ever, these cards give aggressive and mid-range decks like this a way to protect themselves against the timely Be Prepared or Grab Your Sword. Time your use of these cards right and you'll take away your opponent's only chance to regain board control. If Pluto and Doc are the cards that put us ahead, these are the ones that keep us there. The last card I want to focus on is Kit Cloud Kicker. Bounce effects like this create an amazing tempo swing and help us pull really far ahead fast. In this list I've paired Kit with the Queen, so we can shrink anything down to size and bounce it. I'm not too sure how great that is, but as a starting point I think it's worth testing. Speaking of testing, it's probably about time we got into some gameplay. Stick around after because I'll be wrapping up what worked, what didn't, and how I'd tweak the list moving forward. Okay, so moving into gameplay, I just want to give you a proper look at my real first experience with the deck. So as you'll see from the screen here, I have completely purged all of my decks from last season and I'm ready to get into my true first game of this season with Green Mufasa. So let's just jump right into the lab and see who we find. I think there's going to be a lot of known people around at the moment, but this doesn't look like someone I'm familiar with. Going second isn't fantastic for us, and this hand, to be honest, isn't looking amazing. This is probably a situation where, in the dark, against something like Amber Amethyst, probably not going to get a huge amount of mileage out of the Bare Necessities. So we're happy to send these back, and certainly big cards like Ray, not so necessary when we've got Mufasa already to play in that slot. So we probably send back 5 here, just with a 1-drop, and hoping to hit cards like Doc. Yeah, that's decent. Oh, and a Pluto. Okay, so now we're really onto something. We've got the 1-3-5 line here, and we can sort of see how it shakes out. I'm pretty happy. It's a difficult choice inking, but I think I'm happy to ink either the Rapunzel or the Tinkerbell. I'm doubting it's going to be a sort of hard card advantage race against Amber Amethyst, so let's just get Rapunzel in the mix and go with Pluto for now. Depending on what we draw next turn, and what they play this turn, the ink is probably the Queen for next turn. looking like some sort of big cost reduction deck for the opponent. And this right here is one of the big reasons why I want to be playing Mufasa right now, which is that Ursula and the Bare Necessities are so hyped. It's really good to be playing a deck that makes the opponent miss with them. So our opponent there has taken their second turn off to Bare Necessities us, hit nothing, and now we've got the turn 3 Mufasa set up, which is a really good position to be in. I'm feeling pretty good about this one, all things considered. And a Mal just to draw for them is not incredible. It's not going to really advance the board. We could bounce with Kit if we wanted, but again, not something we need to do in this position because our line is really laid out for us. We go cost reduced with Pluto, quest with Doc, and we play out our Mufasa on turn 3, and we're sort of doing exactly what we set out to do. Yeah, not a huge amount more to say to it than that. Good point to observe there. Pluto is going to die to a stiff breeze a lot of the time. And yeah, here our opponent cleans up the cards we've used to reduce costs, which is not a wonderful position to be in, obviously. But it's not the end of the world. Those are kind of... well, I don't want to say expendable because they're not really, but in positions like this, they're certainly... we're not so dependent on keeping them around, even though we would love to start thinking about playing our Surfer Stitch. This is a quest spot, I think, rather than a challenge, so I'm just going to go ahead and quest with Mufasa. Again, we want to keep the pressure on them, and in an ideal world, we'll take the trade here with their Mim. We take our law and make the trade on their terms, and we hope to flip something meaningful off Mufasa to really keep us ahead here. But overall, not a terrible position to be in, and that was a good stabilisation turn from them before, to be very honest. It looks great what they did there, but that's nothing new, right? That's just a line with Mims, but they can trade and just do some stuff like that. A Pluto, which is interesting. It didn't look to me like the kind of deck that's interested in moving too fast, but maybe Pluto just goes in all sorts of decks. We'll have to sort of see how that shakes out. And replaying the Mal to draw a card. Again, I don't think we're taking the trade here with this Mim. I think we're pretty happy to just keep pushing forward. I'm happy to play out a Kit in this position. Oh, and we can run out a Pluto as well. So we got a choice here. We could run out a Pluto and a Kit and ink our Surfer Stitch and look at moving into a big bodyguard shifting next turn. We're still way off casting Surfer, so few different line options here. Whether we want to play out our Pluto, reduce cost next turn, we would be close to... yeah, really difficult actually. I think we're definitely playing the Pluto. He's uninkable. He's going to come into play. So the choice here is, do we want to set up a next turn shift into the big bodyguard, or do we want to just take our one turn advantage of sorts with Pluto, ink up to 5 here. That'll be 6 with Pluto. We'd need to draw an inkable next turn to cast a Surfer. And that would be very, very good, but has the obvious downside of if we were to draw an uninkable, we sort of brick. I'm playing Kit for sure, so let's just get rid of their Pluto for now. I'm going to take my quest for 4, and I think I am going to roll the dice. You don't gamble, you don't win. So I'm going to roll the dice here and hope for the inkable into Surfer, because that is a massively powerful play on board that draws us a couple cards as well. They're taking the dice roll as well, trading into Mufasa finally. Let's see what we get. It's a big Pluto, so that is a big hit. This is more options than I expected to see. I don't think it matters because it always comes in exerted, so you can't really miss on the ability to get your bodyguard into play. And that's exactly why you play Mufasa, right? Is you're hoping to hit those big 7-cost characters when he is sent to the Shadow Realm. Not a bad position to be in here. Again, we draw the inkable, it starts looking really great. Not too sure what our opponent is trying to do, other than that they're drawing a lot of cards and playing a lot of really valid stuff. Okay, this is fine for us, the Isma here. I think the line is still that we play a Surfer, so I'm going to go ahead and ink one. Having something like a Ray is a good option too, but this definitely to me just looks like a straight up draw to play another. We know that in these colours, Amber Amethyst, they're having trouble dealing with high willpower characters, so it's just a straight up easy choice to Surfer here, and they go ahead and concede. So oh, and they've declined the rematch, so we'll just move on to our next game. Okay, so moving into our second game, let's see what we find. Emerald Steel. So in the dark right now, I would expect some sort of Ursula, 3-cost Ursula deck. Oh, and this is a really bad hand. We can keep a Simba just in case we don't draw any other 2-drop. Do sort of believe at this point Simba's the worst card in the deck. Can see a Pluto coming, that's good. And actually Simba, not so bad in situations like this with the Pluto. We do need to protect the Pluto a little bit. We'll run him straight out. But yeah, as I was saying, on the opponent's deck, I think Beast Shenanigans with Ursula 3. There's a combo deck with that sends Beast to Bayo, and then draw discard with Sheriff of Nottingham in play to start pinging our opponent's characters, readying Beast, and you just get to quest for a massive amount. A Daisy inked for them makes us think just straight up discard Shenanigans. Again, not applying pressure to the board, so we're happy to ink our Simba. It's probably just a quest of Pluto. Let's get a look at what's going on here. It's discard, and it's very traditional discard. We could choose to get rid of the Grab Your Sword. They're going to see a lot of cards because we're not going to be able to interact with their Prince John. We can kit their Flynn next turn, which is great for helping us make sure they don't get too much advantage. Actually creates a major swing in this game because they can't sing the chill after playing Prince John. We're going to take the Grab Your Sword here because it is pretty bad news for us. Might not be the right choice, but it's what I'm going with now. And we'll just take our quest for 1 with Pluto. So for them now, it's a ink with Flynn. A lot of cards to try and keep track of in my mind as well in their hand. But that's the new one, Cinderella. And we'll see the Flynn Rider run out here that we're just going to send straight back to hand. Interesting ink decision. To me, it's looking like Queen here. I think this is I think they're really going to struggle to interact with our evasives beyond drawing the right removal at the right time. We know they don't have any right now, and it's a couple of turns away from when they're going to start going wild with discard. So I'm going to send the Queen away right here. I'm going to kit their Flynn and get to questing. Lots more cards in hand for them, and big routes to draw a lot as well once their Prince Johns are online. So time is of the essence right now. This is this is a constrained game for them. It looks like it's probably a Prince John here. So inking the Flynn that we bounced, and it's a Prince John, and the next turn they can... Oh, okay. This opens up our choices here. I think we ink a Tink. And we'll just run out on Mufasa. A good draw in this position. But we're looking at probably discarding both these cards in hand this turn. Then we're living off the top of the deck. Discard this season is scary. It's a scary force. I'll be brewing a fair bit with it myself. But yeah, the addition of a lot of those targeted abilities like Ursula, Bare Necessities, multiple versions of discard can exist now, I'm sure. It's an easy draw to for them, and a Sing Sudden Chill to get rid of my Ray. This does expose their Prince, which is great. We'll just hit it with Kit. But we're living off the top, and that is obviously pretty scary. Although sometimes you just get them, I suppose. Another Mufasa is almost the perfect draw here. I imagine our opponent won't be too happy to see that. And now we're at the mercy of what they're doing. It's difficult for them to deal 3 to the whole board in one turn when their board's empty. And they can't tinker swords in one turn. All depends on what they play here, to be honest. If it's something like a beast, then, that opens the game up. Okay, they're going to clean up our little things while setting up for what I imagine will be a Tinkerbell next turn. Queen not going to do it for us here, and we do just have to ink it, unfortunately, because it'll only get discarded otherwise. So, easy ink. Again, we are putting our faith in the king. Let's see what Mufasa does. If he flips a bare necessities, it's lights out for us. But if he puts a couple big things into play, then we're still very much in this game. All going to depend on what we see. And Ursula is decent, so we'll put her into play and see what we're dealing with. And we'll take that sudden chill. It's Benja, Cinderella, Prince John. So we're not too mad about that. And that was on the second one. It's a genie, so really nice hit. Send your Tink back. Then we're going to go to my turn. Get to quest for 3. And if they want to Tink again, they'll have to spend their whole turn doing that. So Genie, one of my favourite cards that just never quite made it. And it's a concede from them. They've declined the rematch, so we'll move on again. And now moving into game 3. Steel Amethyst. So probably Jafar. Something going on with Jafar. Apologies if the audio levels are a bit weird, by the way. It's my first attempt at recording a video and just wanting to get straight into it and give you a sort of proper stream of consciousness while I do that. I'll look at tweaking for next time if anything is a bit sharp. Not a bad hand at all. Considering sending back the Ray as well, because we'll probably draw something big to ramp into. We want that Mufasa. I might live to regret this, but 3 go. And yeah, we found some big stuff. It's probably not the big stuff we want. And this game, will be an exercise in seeing how kit helps us maintain board and take the sting out of the tempo of our opponent's deck. So interesting already. It's already interesting. Again, it's just going to become my trademark move. I ink Rapunzel's. She's an incredible card that lives permanently in the inkwell. But that to me does look like the right way forward. We'll have to see what the opponent develops here to determine whether we go for a kit right away or whether we play a dock. And obviously kitting a Simba that does its thing on play doesn't feel so great. And it's probably a bare necessities is an option. We could just ink bare necessities, see what they've got going on, and then just kind of pump the brakes a little before we start doing things. Because whatever we do with Pluto here, if we play a 3, it's going away. Kit can't return Jafar. He's got too much strength. So it's maybe ink a Kit. Oh, I don't know. This is tough. I am going to ink 1 Kit, and I'm just going to play a bare necessities. It doesn't feel good at all, to be honest. But we'll have a look. Yeah, and here we go. Usual suspects. Jafar, Sword, Whole New World. So we're facing the shift Jafar into Whole New World. Sword is obviously way worse for us in a vacuum. Our deck gets hit hard by Sword. So yeah, it's all going to depend on how quickly we can kind of play a Genie, stop their route to tempoing a Jafar. The Whole New World is the whole combo, but let's do it. Let's take the Whole New World. I'm going to live to regret that, I'm almost certain. But we'll just do that for now. So we need to keep them off that, and it enables us to kind of keep the pace of play quite slow. We can play to a board in such a way that we don't massively expose ourselves to grab your sword, but with no more interaction with the hand here, we don't have a lot of options for just interacting with Whole New World. It would be an inevitable Whole New World on turn 5 with Jafar, which would be a massive swing and a big problem for us. So here, we just need to hold our nerve, not do too much, and let them develop a goat, let them do what it is they'll do, and steel ourselves for a genie next turn, I suppose. If he does play a goat, a genie next turn looks good. Okay, so it's a shift Jafar. Now there's 2 routes open for his shift Jafar. Did he ink a goat? I missed. I didn't pay attention. That was foolish. Few things we can do here. We can just shift a big Pluto if we want. Not a bad option, given the state of their board. And their cards in hand are likely to be big Jafar, sword. They must have inked the goat. I've missed that. I'll have to check the video. So, yeah, against everything that we know is around, Kit doesn't line up particularly well. So I'm just going to see how big Pluto performs, because it could be a really good way back into the game if it does what we want it to. If we happen to get randomly Ismud or something here, it's going to feel really bad. But I think looking at their board and what they can do here, we're actually pretty happy. It's not... we need to remember that Shift Jafar as well isn't like a crazily powerful attacker. He's a bit on the weak side in that respect. So if we can put a wall up that quests and keeps healing itself as Big Pluto does, it's really good. And yeah, as we see there, they just pass the turn straight back. So maybe we're getting somewhere. No roots for Rapunzel here, and we don't need 2 of them, so she goes back to her house in the Inkwell. This is a genie. This is a genie position on his bigger Jafar, and that's going to further remove their ability to trade straight in with our Pluto. Now we're thinking about, we want to fade any big turns with Shift Jafar into some really strong songs. And here comes Shift Jafar to do his thing. Maybe it will be a Whole New World. Maybe that wouldn't be the worst place ever for us to be. We'll have to see. It really is all going to hinge on what they do after it with these resources. And that's a bad draw. We really, really wanted to see something. Yeah, that's a bad Whole New World for us. And it's probably going to mean that we have to Surfer here. Because we quite desperately wanted to see anything that would return this Jafar to hand. And we've really, well, considering the luck we had in other games, we can't really be too down on our position. But yeah, it's got to be a Surfer here, because right now, we know that we've discarded 1 Whole New World. They've just played 1. We are dead to 2 Whole New Worlds next turn, and this is the power of Jafar. And why I want to be playing things like Genie that have this sort of ability to just bounce stuff. Yeah, it's not great, but it's also not over. We are dead to these double Whole New World lines, but let's keep playing high willpower stuff that we know our opponent's deck struggles to deal with. There's a Genie, so really let's survive for a turn. And we're presenting lethal, so we'll see what they can do here. Double sword doesn't do it for them. Double Whole New World, we're just dead, but if they've got it, they've got it. 39 cards left in the deck, and they've seen 2. We should be able to... Oh man, we are really close to dead to just 1 Whole New World. Yeah, this Jafar is really scary. that is a terrifying card. Like, this game, the pace of this game has not been high. Gaining 7 is really, really wild, just incidentally. I mean, I know everybody theorized about this, but just watching it play out, this is the first time I've watched it play out. It's really strong. Oh, although the game might just be over. We can't just quest for 6 here. So, I mean, it doesn't make Jafar any less strong, but that is the game. Slightly abrupt ending there. Unfortunately, the recording cut out in the rest of the match, which is a real shame because I went on to lose that best of 3 against the Jafar combo and am sufficiently terrified of it. There were some interesting lines in there, but I'm sure we'll be able to cover more like that in a future video. So having a look at the list again, generally pretty happy with how the deck performed. It seemed to do what I wanted it to do, and it didn't feel like any of the cards were particularly poor. Maybe Cloud Kicker was a bit more limited than I thought it would be. If we start seeing lots of these Jafar type decks, notably there was a lot of 3 strength, and I think in general in the game, in the metagame, there's a lot of 3 strength early drop characters. You're not going to be able to bounce with Kit. I'm up for continuing to try, but it's just a bit of a warning sign for me. It might not be all that. I'm also pretty underwhelmed with Hades. He's been a staple of decks like this for a while, but now the tide might have turned in terms of the speed and the fact that, you know, is some bringing one thing back from your discard pile really good enough anymore? Is that the kind of thing you can afford to take a turn to do? Is it even impactful enough when you flip him off a Mufasa? Need some more testing to answer questions like that. But on the whole, I think this is a great starting point, and I do think the deck is really well positioned. As we kind of saw in that first game, right at the very start, the difference maker here is that there are going to be a lot of decks out there playing Bare Necessities and playing Ursula, taking people's hands apart, and you just don't really have to make yourself vulnerable to that. By playing a Mufasa deck, you are innately really well isolated against it. It doesn't hit you very hard. They're rarely going to take away anything at all. They can only hit your Bare Necessities, and if they do, you're not particularly worried. So, to me, feels like a pretty decent pick. It all depends on what these big steel decks end up looking like. The Jafar combo is scary enough on its own. There's a Beast combo out there that also looks very, very good, and it may just be that we need to be playing more removal. We might need to be one of those decks ourselves. Plenty more decks to come from me, at least, that are more along that line, and hoping to kind of bring some more stuff to you soon. But yeah, in general, thank you so much for just taking a look at this video. It's the first time I've ever made any video content for any game, so sorry that it's a bit rough around the edges, but thanks for sticking with it. It's really really means a lot to me. If you're hearing this, then you've made it this far, and yeah, thanks so much. Please do consider subscribing to this channel if you'd like to kind of keep an eye on more deck videos, deck updates, all the sorts of video content I'm going to try and put together. But I'm sure things will get a bit smoother, a bit less scuffed as time goes on. But again, yeah, just thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy this deck and all the others too. Big thank you, and I'll speak to you soon.